In the lecture today, we will learn some advanced two-dimensional editing commands to copy and modify objects. The commands we will learn in this lecture are array commands, move, rotate, and trim commands. Let's first check the array command. Actually, array command is quite useful for complex two-dimensional drawings in AutoCAD. This command can be applied to create multiple copies of a single or multiple objects and arrange the copies in a certain pattern. Generally, the AutoCAD provides three different methods for the array copies: rectangle, path, and polar. In the next demonstration, I'm going to show you how to use all these three methods and complete the four objects in this figure. Okay, let's check the first method, rectangular array. So here we want to use the array command to generate the 4x5 array for the rectangles. First, we need to call the command array, and then you will be asked to select the source object. We are using this rectangle as the source object. The next thing you need to do is specifying the methods. For this example, we are using the rectangular array, so choosing rectangular. And then you have several options for you to specify the characters of the array. So first, the associative. This one is applied for you to define whether you want to generate a single object with multiple rectangles or multiple objects and all the rectangles are independent to each other. So if we only want to generate one object, choose yes. If we want to generate multiple objects, choose no. And here I will use no for the 4x5 array. And then for the base point, this one is applied for you to specify the location of this icon here. It's actually applied for you to define the control point of the array. And this control point is associated with the spacing between the rectangles and also the number of the columns and the rows. So usually the base point should be specified inside of the source object or at the boundary of the source object. In this example, we will just keep the base point inside of the object. And the next one is the count. This one can be applied for you to specify the number of the columns and the number of rows. In this example, we want to specify the number of the columns as 5 and number of rows as 4. Now we have 4x5 array. The one thing we need to do is like the spacing between the rows and the columns will be different from the figure here. So we have to go to the spacing option to specify the spacing between the columns and the spacing between the rows. First, for the spacing between columns, we set value as 3 units, and for the spacing between the rows, we also set them as 3. And then you have the same figure as the example here. You can also define the number of the columns and the spacing between the columns using the column commands, the number of the rows and the spacing between the rows using the rows commands. And the last one, levels, is applied for you to generate a rectangular array in three-dimensional space. So we will talk about this option in the future. And that's all about the definition of the rectangular array. And here you will see that if we choose one object, it's actually independent to the other one. But for this one, I'm using the associative mode, and all of them will be one object. Okay, so that will be all for the rectangular array. Okay, let's check the second method, polar array. This method is applied for you to generate multiple copies of the source object, and those copies will be assigned around one common center. In this example, definitely you have to call the polar array to generate the 8 copies of the rectangle. So here we should first call the array command and select the object. Then you need to choose the polar array. And the first thing you have to do is specify the center point for the array. In this example, the center point is the center of the circle. So we will choose the center of the circle as the center of the array. And then you have a set of options. Here, the associative base point and the levels will be the same to the rectangle array. If we choose the item, you can define the number of the items specified for that array. In this example, we have totally 8 items, so you need to choose the value 8 for the items. The angle between defines the angle between any two consecutive items in the array. Currently the value is 45 degrees. If we change that one to 30 degrees, these two items will be much closer to each other, and the angle between these two items is 30 degrees. You also can specify the fill angle, which means the angle starts from the first item to the last item. In this example, the fill angle is 270 degrees. So if we specify the fill angle as 270 degrees, we will have exactly the same figure to the example. We also have two other options, rows and rotate item. For the rows, you can actually define extra rows for the polar array. Currently, the number of the rows is 1. If you specify them as 2, you will get a 1 extra row. And you also need to specify the distance between the rows. For example, the value is 4. And for the elevation, which is actually defines the height of the rows. For two-dimensional joining, we just specify them as 0. And that's the setting for the rows. For the rotate item, currently all the items will be rotated automatically. If we don't want to rotate the item, click No. Then all the objects will keep the same directions to the source object. For this example, definitely you have to rotate the item automatically, so you need to choose the rotate item back to yes. And that would be the setting of the polar array. Now let's check the last method, the path array. This method is applied for you to generate multiple copies of the source object and assign them along a path. See the example here, we want to generate a copy of the rectangle and put them along the curve. So we have to call the path array command. First, we type the array command and choose the object. Then we select the path array. For this method, you should first identify the curve for the path. Now we are using the smooth curve as the path. For the path array command, you actually have two different methods to define the characters of the array, divide and measure. Actually, these two methods are the same to the commands divide and measure. Divide will divide the whole path into a given number of segments. Measure will define the spacing between any two consecutive items. In this example, we will use the divide command and set the item number as 5 so that the whole path can be divided into 4 segments. Once you choose the divide option, you can specify the number of the items. For this example, number of items is 5. And now you have totally 5 rectangles defined in this drawing. The next thing you need to do is to specify the base point to make the objects aligned to the curve. In this example, you will see that the corner of this rectangle is actually aligned to the curve, which means you have to specify the base point as the corner of this rectangle. Click that one as the base point. Now you aligned the rectangle to the curve. And that's all you need to know about the setting of the polar array. Now I'm going to show you how to use the array command to complete this 3x4 array. Actually, you can find out that the array here is not exactly horizontal or vertical, which means you cannot call the rectangular array to complete the figure. Actually, here you need to use the pass array to draw this figure. So first, you have to call the array command and select the object, choose the pass array, and then you have to specify the pass curve as the straight line. Then modify the method as divide and change the item number as 4. And you also need to change the row number as 3. Specify the distance between the rows as 4 units and the elevation as 0. And then you will complete the joining. So this one is very useful for you to draw some arrays that are not aligned horizontally or vertically. Okay, here I will show you two useful commands for you to complete two-dimensional joinings. The first one is move. This command can help you to move objects to a specific location. You can actually use the coordinates to move the objects to one location accurately. The second one is rotate. This one can help you to rotate one or multiple objects around a point of reference. And generally the angle defined under the rotate command is counterclockwise. And you also can make a copy about the objects based on the rotate command. In the next slides, I'm going to show you how to use both of them and an example about the two commands. Okay, let's first check the move command. This one is very simple. First type move under the command window and select the objects. Then you have to specify the base point and the displacement for the move command. Here I'm using the center of the rectangle as the base point. And next, you just need to move your mouse to specify the displacement as the yellow line here. Once you reach to the destination, left-click your mouse to complete the move command. So that would be the operation about the move command. Next, for the rotate command, type rotate and select the objects. Still, I'm using the center of the rectangle as the base point. Next, you can specify the rotation angle. This would be the angle counterclockwise to the positive x direction. So I'm set the value as 120 degree. Then the whole object is rotated about 120 degrees respect to the positive x direction. Also, the rotate command can be applied for you to copy the objects. Still, you have to select all the objects and choose the base point as the center of the rectangle. And now click copy. Then select the angle of rotation. It will actually make a new copy of the objects, and the new object is rotated about 90 degrees respect to the original object. So that's the operation of the move and rotate commands. AutoCAD also provides a command to change the size of objects. The command is scale. This command can enlarge or reduce the size of select objects. At the same time, it's able to keep the proportions of the objects the same after scaling. In AutoCAD, we also have another command, offset, which can provide similar functions. In the next slide, I'm going to show you how to use the scale command. AutoCAD also provides a command to change the size of objects. The command is scale. This command can enlarge or reduce the size of select objects. At the same time, it's able to keep the proportions of the objects the same after scaling. In AutoCAD, we also have another command, offset, which can provide similar functions. In the next slide, I'm going to show you how to use the scale command. For designing AutoCAD, it's quite common for you to add some assistant lines or objects to catch the feature points or the directions in your drawing. Once you complete the drawing, you probably want to remove the whole or part of the assistant lines. In that sense, you have to call the command trim. This command can help you to trim the objects to meet the edges of the other objects. Basically, there are 5 options under this command: crossing, projects, fencing, edge, and erase. In the next demonstration, I'm going to show you how to set those options and how to use the trim command to complete the figure in the first example. Okay, let's first check the trim command. Basically, this command is applied to remove the segments that you don't want to keep in your current drawing. To use this command, type trim under the command window. Then you will be asked to select the objects. You can also select all the objects in your current drawing by simply clicking Enter. In this example, we would like to modify the circle, rectangle, and triangle. So we are choosing these three objects. Then you have a set of options. First, if you move your cursor to a segment, then you can see that the segment will be removed. Generally, this segment is defined by the two closest crossing points to the cursor. Click here, it will remove that segment. If you don't want to remove that segment, choose Undo to recover that segment. For the first option, fence, it will define a path based on set of straight lines. Then all the segments crossing that fence will be removed. And for the second one, crossing, you can actually define a crossing window. With that one, all the segments crossing that window will be removed. You also can recover those removed segments by Undo here. The project option is applied for you to check whether you want to project 3D objects in two-dimensional space or current viewport. Generally, this one is rarely applied in two-dimensional drawing, so we will just ignore this part, always using the user coordinate system as the two-dimensional space. The edge command is very useful. With this option, you can assume that all line segments have infinite length and all arcs will be completed as circles. Then the segment will be defined based on the extended line or the arcs in the current drawing. See here if I'm choosing the extended option. Now we can remove one short segment here. And this segment is actually defined by the extended line of this straight line and this straight line. If we choose no extended, then you actually can remove the whole arc. So that's the difference between the extended and no extended edge option. The last one is erase. With this one, you can actually remove an independent objects. So here, if we want to remove the entire rectangle, you have to choose the erase option. And then click, you can remove that rectangle from the drawing. These are the basic operations of the command trim. Here I will show you how to use the trim command to complete the first example. First, let's call the trim command and then select the objects we want to modify. Then we can start to remove the segments we want to keep in the drawing. So let's start with those segments one by one and remove all the unnecessary segments. Basically, those segments are defined by the closest crossing points. You can also call the other advanced options to trim multiple segments at the same time. And then for those straight lines, you see that you cannot remove them directly. This is because these segments are actually independent objects. In that sense, you have to call the erase option and choose these objects directly. Click Enter, you will remove those segments. And that's the way for you to complete the figure in the first example. In this example, I'm going to show you how to use the trim and array commands to complete the figure here. In this figure, you have the dimensions about the straight lines and also the diameters of the circle. In the next demonstration, you will see the details about the trim operation and the array. To complete this figure, we should first draw a rectangle with a dimension of 13 by 70 for the straight lines on the top and bottom. Let's complete this rectangle. specify the location of the rectangle and choose dimension 13 by 70, and then you complete the rectangle. Next thing you need to do is draw the circle with a diameter of 60 units, and the center of the circle will be the same to the center of the rectangle. So choosing this point as the center, specify the diameter as 60. And then you can call the trim command to remove the straight lines inside of the circle. Choose those objects and trim the segment. Next, we can call the array command. Here, if we want to generate the other components around the circle, you should call the polar array. So first, let's choose the array and select the objects. Choose the polar array and specify the center point as the center of the circle. And then define the item number as 6. Now you complete all the straight lines around the circle. The next thing you need to do is call the trim command to remove the shorter arcs. Select the objects and then remove those short arcs. And click enter, you complete the figure. So that's the way for you to use both trim and array commands. Actually, these two commands will be very useful for you to complete the future joinings in this class. This is the second part about the two-dimensional editing commands. In the lecture today, we focused on the two commands, array and trim. After class, you should spend more time to practice these two commands. In the next lecture, we will complete all the two-dimensional editing aids.